Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Season Podcast, a show where we deep dive into hospitality and the people that run it. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Chef Sood.
Thank you. Hi, guys. I'm very excited to introduce today's guest. He has total of 23 years of experience in the industry. He was the opening chef for Monkey Bar, the original Monkey Bar. He was the opening chef for Toast and Tonic and Sly Granny, apart from a gazillion other things. Please welcome Chef Varun Pereira to the podcast. Chef, thank you.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. And how has it been? How was your pop-up day before?
It was hectic, but good.
Good.
Long, yeah.
This was like after a long time you were doing like a separate gig, right?
Yeah. One of the first few gigs private, like on my own.
On your own,
Yes,
one of the first
yes.
ones. And how is like what's the difference between commercial kitchen and doing a gig like that?
I think commercial kitchens are more fun.
In what way?
This is a lot more work because you have to do your prep at home and generally you have no help.
Everything
So
is
everything is from scratch is you from start to finish, from procuring your vegetables to prepping your vegetables to cleaning your dishes, loading the trucks, unloading the trucks, set up, then unloading after, like loading after. So it's tiring, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
like what would you consider a major factor in keeping your passion alive because there is a personal and professional toll that comes with working in commercial kitchens, the working hours, the work-life balance. So what do you think works? Because you are as passionate as anybody who's joining the industry right now. So how do you keep that alive? And what helps in that? Keeping your passion and your craft?
Just
On
doing what
board.
you love. I think, if you love what you do, then it becomes easier. You don't have to really struggle and push yourself. It just sort of happens organically.
Okay.
But for people coming up in for the first time, right, they wouldn't have that space to experiment to see, okay, this is something they want to do for a long time, because at least they go for an internship and then they back out, right? So how do
Yeah.
you discover the knack of passion that, okay, hey, I can actually put through that 10, 11 hours of service and then get there?
I mean, I think like just an internship is a little less to make a decision. I think you got to give it at least a few years
Few years.
before you really decide. Because an internship is like usually what, like 3 months, maybe
months
max
max.
6. I don't know if that's really enough time to sort of make a decision whether you want to be in the industry or not. So I would say at least a year or two before making that call of sticking on.
But what would you suggest to a student who just joined in for the first work experience and it's like working that long hour shifts is something very new to them, right?
Yeah.
So how would you like recommend that they tackle it, or how did you tackle it per se when you started off?
Honestly, I kind of knew that this is how it works, the industry, like it's a lot of long hours and all that. But I feel the generations that are coming now are a little not tuned to sort of busting ass is what basically what we always say. They're sort of on the softer side. They're more of the 4 hours that they want to break.
Correct.
And then they're like, it's been 6 hours, 8 hours, it's time to go home. You kind of have to leave that out. You just gotta just work until
Grind
they
it
tell you to
out.
stop, which is basically what we did. Very mindless sort of, we just went in the morning and we just worked till we were told, okay, done, wrap up and it's time to go home.
Correct.
So, it was no questions asked sort of attitude from us. But I feel nowadays they're a little more on the whole,
Softer side of things.
work-life balance. And, we never had that. Nobody gave a shit about like work-life balance back then. It was just like, this is your job, you got to do it. If
Did
you
that
can't
help
do
you? Like the not having a proper work-life balance in the starting years, did that help you shape your career?
it, definitely. It also builds character,
Correct.
because it's tough in the kitchen with the hours and, actually the worst thing is the holiday part. When everybody else is on holiday and enjoying life, you're like struggling and you're going early.
Yeah.
So, pushing through that is probably the most difficult one. And I don't know if you can ever really get used to that. But eventually I just think you just get numb and,
But do you think it's a good change or
Yes.
it's a payoff? You're losing some and you're gaining some.
you're definitely, it's a trade-off. You're gaining work, but you're losing out on life.
Life.
Like, the fun
No,
stuff.
this change in the newer generation that you're saying, that
Yeah.
they want to have more work-life
Work-life
balance, and sort of not do such hardcore job. Is that necessarily a good thing, or do you think that?
Personally, I think it's bad because the industry is such, it's a demanding industry.
Right.
You know, it's very selfless. You got to give a lot and you don't get as much in return. So I feel that in that respect, it kind of works against them when you're looking for this balance, especially so soon in your career.
Early in your career, I think it's not.
I think later on, once you sort of hit a certain level, a senior level, then you can sort of focus on the balance.
I mean, your character is not even built until you go there, right? If you want to be an executive chef or head chef to grow up the hierarchy, you got to beat through these things, right? Having a balance early.
And also, I think the initial few years is to understand whether this industry is for me or not. Also to understand how much you can actually push yourself. It's the age, you're also fresh out of college, so it's not like, you're already burnt out.
Yeah, you're new to things.
So I find it a little odd when somebody who's just like a fresh newcomer or is their first year in the industry and they're talking about like work-life balance and doing this. I can understand somebody who's been like 5-6 years in the industry and is reaching a burnout stage, so that conversation. But I don't think at 18 or 19 you really need balance, which is, I think, irrespective of kitchen, every industry. Even if you're joining anything, it requires more of what others are doing or seniors are doing, more hours, more interest, more passion. And as Chef said, the payoff is, especially, I think in the initial years, the payoff is less.
And so how many years would that be if you have to put a number?
A lot of it depends on person to person, like how quickly you're able to grasp and turn that around and also develop your skills. I think that's a big part of moving ahead. It's like, so it's a lot of, apart from just working at a job, a lot of behind the scenes, working on yourself, reading, learning, practicing, things like that,
So you're saying being curious during the entire process is what sets the difference between a good chef and an average chef, right?
Definitely.
And passion makes a lot of difference because I think chefs stuck by both you, me, or anybody who joins has that opportunity to realize that, okay, this is not going to pay me off instantly. So then it depends on, are you in it for the money or the glamour part, which has become a major thing now, or are you actually in there for the craft?
Was it always because of the money? Because glamour is just recently which started with the master
It
chef.
was never money.
It was never money.
No, unfortunately, it's never been the money.
I don't think
it's not really money much now. But yeah, I've been doing it just basically because I love cooking and I love being around food. And it's fun to play around with food. And the biggest payoff is seeing people appreciate your food and, be happy about it. That's, I think, the most
satisfying
part of cooking.
So based on that, let's go back to before all the chef thing started and like a little background of where you studied and so was it always in your head that you're going to become a chef or was it over happenstance?
It was just an accident, I guess you could say, or a need. So basically, I did my schooling in Delhi, St. Columbus, and then I studied for a year in Bhagat Singh College.
Okay.
And then post that I had...
You specialized in what during those bachelors?
I was BA.
BA, you did?
Yeah, nothing special like that. And then I had explored, I had basically gone to my dad and said that, I'm not sure what's happening in India for me. So can I explore other options of going abroad and all that? In those days, it was sort of a starting trend that people start going abroad.
It takes a lot on the parents also to send their kids abroad
at
that time,
it's a lot. So I just generally threw it to my dad and he was like, sure, why not, explore, see what happens, what comes out and all. And then through talking, we found a mutual friend whose brother was a professor in this college. And it was a hospitality-driven university in Wisconsin. So I applied, got admission there, and we were like, why not? Give it a try.
And how long was the program there?
It's a 4-year program.
And why did you decide? How did you decide that this is the university I want to go to? When there are a lot of options in the States.
So there's a lot of factors. One was finance. This was the most affordable out of all the universities, and it had a good reputation in hospitality. And the second was the familiarity with this professor. So my dad knew his brother.
Oh, wow.
So they were like, okay, our son's going to America. He's going to be by himself. At least there's somebody to sort of keep an eye on him. And
a familiar face.
Yeah, just be around in case he needs something because we don't really have any family in the States. So they were a little skeptical about that. And then we pushed through and went, got admission, got the, all the legal paperwork, all that happened.
Yeah.
And basically, once I reached America, I realized that apart from just fees, you need money.
Living
to,
expenses through the roof.
You need money to even generally go out. If you want to go
Correct.
out, eat something apart from being on campus,
Mm-hmm.
then you need money. So started looking at jobs and started working as a dishwasher.
So that was your first stint in hospitality as a
Pretty
dishwasher.
much, yeah. So started as a dishwasher, was a dishwasher for about a year and a half.
Wow.
And then slowly, would see people doing prep in kitchens and then, beg the chef, like, let me come in, let me try. Because that was the only way to get money. More money is,
100%.
you sort of move
Climb
up,
up.
climb up the ranks. And then, he finally gave me a shot. He's like, okay, fine. He put me as a prep cook and I used to peel potatoes and shit like that. And slowly that's when I
But how
realized.
do you learn that though? Like, you start off with let's say dishwashing, go into peeling potatoes. You see, you observe people cook there. But what are the things you observe? Like, because while doing your job, there's so much things happening in the kitchen. So if you want to climb up, what are the things you need to be watching out for? Like, how did you pick that skill up?
Oh, you basically need to have your eyes everywhere. Your eyes and your ears. You need to look and see what people are doing, how they're talking. The language, in terms of the culinary part. Just be aware of your surroundings.
Some chefs are people who have been since a child wanted to do this.
Yeah.
And for others, like in your case, it was an aha moment, right? That this worked. So what was that moment for you where it clicked and you were just like, yeah, I can do this for the rest of my life? Or seriously professionally? Was it the craft? Was it a lot of times it's the guest's reaction, right?
Yeah, no, there was no reactions like guest-wise and all that in those days. But I think it was just the craft, that this is something you can learn and build on and, it'll stand you in time.
Do you think the adrenaline part also plays an important role for people sticking to it?
Definitely.
Right? There's a certain kick that's there that comes out of
Also, it's
high pressure jobs.
People have that impression of chefs, which even I did, they're sort of like the rock stars of the culinary world, you see them, they're smoking, they're drinking,
Tatted up, super
tatted up.
biased.
A lot of them do drugs. So it's like, they're the bad boys. So I think that also in some ways attracted me towards the chef. That, this is cool. I'd like to be like, since I can't be a rock star, might as well, be something else similar. But yeah, it was fun.
But did you try your luck at being in a band? Because you're really into heavy metal. And
I used to play guitar back in the day in school. I was in the school band and we had a little band going and all. But then honestly,
even after going to the States?
kitchens just pull too much out of you in terms of
true.
time. You don't really have time to do anything else.
Agreed.
So once I started kitchens, everything sort of came to a halt. All your extracurricular hobbies and stuff that you like to do. And
So what were your timings like when you started in the kitchen as a prep cook or like going
so
up?
I used to work simultaneously while going to college.
Okay.
So basically, when I was not in college, I was in the kitchen.
Kitchen, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
And
So I
college
was
usually 3-4 hours at max.
College is about maybe depending. So in America, it's a little different sort of system. You don't have fixed college hours. It's as per your classes.
Okay.
So some days you could have 6 hours of classes. Some days you could have 2. It all depends on how you sort
Planned
of
it out.
You can sort of plan your schedule.
Interesting.
So like each class, they have like 2-3 options of timings. You can do it morning,
Or
afternoon,
the afternoon
evening.
session.
So you can sort of develop your own semester calendar based on availability.
What your subjects are.
But usually I would like finish my day by the afternoon and then
head
evening would be into kitchen till
Until
the
like late night, 12-1 pretty
yeah.
much.
Okay, so like a full shift. Because I was going to ask how does, because
I was working 80 hours a week.
and there's no limit of how many hours you can do on a student visa.
So they say it's 20,
Huh.
but
Per week.
per week.
Okay.
And do you get compensated by the hour, right? If I'm
You
not
get
wrong?
paid by the hour, yeah.
And do you think that's a huge difference compared to what's happening in India? And do you think that kind of motivated you to like, hey, they're valuing my time and the more hours I put, the more likely I'm going to get paid
Also
higher?
get overtime.
Overtime.
Which is
Exactly.
double, right?
Yeah.
Which is double your
Time and a half, 1.5.
One and a half.
So did that push you? Do you think that was another factor that be like, hey,
That was definitely push was to make money to survive. Also, another real important reason for being in a kitchen was your meals are taken care of. So it's sort of one
dot.
checkbox. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry
Spend
about food.
and all the things,
You don't have
yeah.
to spend on food. You know, you just go to work and you get a meal. And everybody knows, you know, once you're in the kitchen, chefs sort of have that little liberty of
Right.
whipping up something for themselves separately, which
Did you get
nobody
to whip up
else
something
really-
special during that time?
whatever was available, we would totally mess around and create stuff and eat it. And
I guess that's what builds the passion, right? And you get to experiment a lot more. Like,
Experiment
hey,
a lot and try. Like it's a whole different cuisine you get to try, right?
Yeah.
When you shift to another country. And so you were there for 5 years.
yes,
Right.
just under 5, about I'd say 4.5.
And throughout the time, it was more of bar and grill. So I
Yes,
think that's
mostly
where
bar and grill focus. That's pretty much where my American
influence.
influence came, and especially during my foundation years as a chef or as a cook. That's why it's, I think, stuck with me throughout, because that's basically what I started learning. Was, you know, the whole burgers and the wings.
And what is like Wisconsin is famous for? What sort of food?
Wisconsin is dairy.
It's
a
dairy.
dairy
Cheese,
land.
no?
So
Wisconsin
cheese.
cheese.
So farmlands and stuff.
Farmlands. It's all farmlands. So there isn't really much happening.
Correct.
And it's the
Midwest.
Midwest. When you talk about labor laws, right, is there a difference between the labor laws for hospitality in India versus the US? Like, in difference about how long you can get to work and...
To be honest, in India, I mean, we've never really
Okay.
had any labor laws. Nobody's really said anything to us. We've not really experienced, not that I have experienced anything in India. So I would say probably it doesn't exist.
But for
Or
a country that the hospitality industry is like the third most biggest thing which recruits people, right? Apart
Yeah.
from agriculture and government jobs, hospitality is the biggest. So there should be some sort of regulations.
I mean, I'm sure there is a regulation. I just don't think they're really involved. Enforced. Because to be honest, in my experience of working in India, I have never really come across anybody from like that department coming.
There's never a government body that comes to check,
comes to check,
are you overworked and are these...
they don't care.
There is. I don't think it's about care. I don't think it's in our general government culture to see whether a lot of these laws are being implemented or not. Like,
Also, I think the
Such a big country,
population.
population
plays a
is an
big
issue.
role.
How do you keep a check? And then I don't think the same laws can apply to, suppose, dosa centers. That should apply.
Correct,
To the
to
minimum
normal.
wage can't be the same, right?
Same, right.
That is for a restaurant or this. So I think the variables are way more. And also, we aren't really a very law forward.
The most we've gone to is food safety, right? I think people come for food
food
safety
safety.
inspections.
That is nowadays, now at least slowly you can see there is some sort of regiment and
People are
things
following.
getting implemented. But yeah, we still got
But
ways
that
to
again,
go,
with
I think.
cloud kitchens, we see a lot of hygiene factors are not being met. We see a lot of these reels coming out. Hey, I found a
Yeah,
cockroach and a thing. I found...
That's why there's been sudden this rise of cloud kitchens, I think, after COVID.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to keep a check on whether it's clean or not. But to be honest, that depends a lot on the owner and the person, because I've seen such kitchens even in France, right? So I was quite surprised. And that's why
Yeah, there are kitchens like this all over the world.
Yeah.
It's not that it happens only in India, but I think it happens maybe more often here than there. But I mean, there's some crazy kitchens there also. I mean, I don't know, there was that show that Gordon Ramsay had a show.
Kitchen
Kitchen
Nightmares.
nightmares and hell's yeah.
And some of the restaurants he goes to is like, would put India to shame.
I mean, you go to the freezer and you see
Yeah.
what's there, and I'm like,
saving
what?
her old mayo in the fridge. Stuff
So
like that.
I'm sure it happens everywhere. I guess maybe it's gets more brought up here.
Most one.
And then, like, what made you come back to India, or did you want to come back to India?
I slowly realized that I think I was more comfortable being back at home. I always felt that, like, even though because of my skin color and all, I did kind of blend in and all that, but I always felt more comfortable being at home. I still always
being
felt like an outsider.
That second-class citizen that people talk about.
I never really had that experience of being like treated badly or anything, a little bit. But overall, I just always felt like, this is not home for me. Home is
Always
India.
felt so far away from what
Yeah.
you are familiar with.
Yeah. So then I decided to give it a try to come back.
And did you have like an idea of what the restaurant scene had become or was becoming when you were coming back to India? Had you done like your R&D in that, or you just decided I'm come back?
Decided to come back. Yeah, I just called my parents and I'm like, I want to come home. I don't want to stay here anymore. And they were like, okay, cool.
And the game was different compared to when you left and when you came back, or was it still slow growing pace?
In that 5 years at India,
It was
food
still
scene changed?
similar, it was still more hotel driven.
Hotel-driven.
In those days, it was like if you wanted a good meal, it was a five-star hotel. And that was still going on, which is why I ended up joining the 5 stars
When you came back.
when I came back. But then slowly, that change did start happening. I think one of the first few standalones that popped up was Olive Beach in Delhi, and
That
was
we'll
a-
get to.
We'll touch
And
upon.
also, you met somebody very interesting during this flight back to India, right?
Yeah.
There was a-
Yeah,
so
so
if you can tell us the story.
On my
about
connecting flight from Bombay to Bangalore, I was sitting next to A.D. Singh, who's the founder of Olive. And it was brought to my notice that he's the guy, and I had no idea what Olive was or anything. But anyway, just had a chat with him. It was him and his wife. And generally, he was like, who are you? Where are you from? So I go, I'm just coming back from America. I studied in college, and I'm starting in Bangalore. And so he's like, oh, we're opening a restaurant called Olive Beach. We have one in Delhi. Why don't you check it out? I think you would fit in there and all that. So I was like, sure, why not?
You had a full-on interview session on the
Pretty
flight
much,
back.
yeah.
Randomly on your way
got
back.
his approval, then he passed me on to their general manager and came, saw the space. When I came, it was a little bit of a shock because it was
It's a huge space,
mid-construction.
yeah,
The restaurant was not ready. So then they kind of took me around. They were like, this is where the kitchen is going to be and this is where our butchery is going to be. And I'm just trying to like picture all that because all this is new to me, like construction and all that. So I was like, okay, cool. Then met with the chef, I think it was Anuj Kapoor.
Anish Kapoor at that time.
And also Chef Manu at that time. He wasn't the head chef, but I think he was one of the second in commands. Had a chat with him because he was also from America. So
He was in CIA, if I'm
he
not
had
wrong,
just
right?
also, I think, graduated and come back a year or so. So I had a little bit of familiarity with him. So spoke to him and all. Unfortunately, didn't take up their offer because I think they wanted to move me to Bombay. And I was like, I'm just moving back. I don't want to, move
Keep going
again.
on places.
Because I actually missed my family a lot because I hadn't seen them for 3 years while I was in America. So I just kind of want to be around.
But why Bangalore though? Because you were from Delhi, right? Did your parents move to Bangalore?
Yeah, so during the shift when I was in college, my parents decided to move to Bangalore. We've always had family in Bangalore, but then they decided like, why not? I think Bangalore is like the Miami.
So you didn't go back to Delhi, but rather you came back to Bangalore.
No, I haven't really gone back to Delhi much.
Was it weird that, when you went, you were a Delhiite and then you came back and now you
Well, I was born in Bangalore.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were visiting Bangalore, like you had an idea about the city.
So my cousin Dhruv, he's been mostly in Bangalore all his life. So us being a close family, we would always do holidays and stuff. So Bangalore was not unfamiliar to me. It was
Yeah, otherwise that's a big change, right? You come back and home is in a completely different
Different
city
place,
now.
that's what I was wondering.
yeah.
And so
It
then
was
you
still pretty freaky. Like
right?
coming back and nothing is your old haunts like in Delhi, wherever we used to hang out.
and
Friends,
then language changes.
friends, no friends. You come, you're like by yourself. So it's almost like another fresh start.
Fresh start, right?
Yeah.
True.
But it was a very different industry back then, right?
Yeah.
Like
It is tough. There was a lot of bullying and
and plus the passion-driven people were very less, right?
Yeah.
It was more of the general staff that was working there because
and like
of
a punishment would be like 100 kgs of tomato sauce.
sauce.
That would be like your punishment if you messed up or you rubbed them the wrong way. And
But that would be a learning experience if you look at it.
it is. It's all a learning experience in the end.
Till a certain point, though, once the bullying becomes a lot of unnecessary
Repeated
bullying, that does used to happen. Back then, it used to happen a lot. That
One thing you learn though is it makes you work fast.
Work fast.
You work fast.
I mean, if someone starts bullying, it can become a habit, right? The fact that they know they can bully kind of dwells up in a span of a year.
And it was a major part of the work culture back in Delhi.
Not now.
Now, I think, again, the shift has the moment that passion-driven people started coming in.
Correct.
They knew what was wrong with the industry.
And
that
they're
they had-
fixing it slowly.
So they're trying to fix it. It's been slow, but a lot of changes have come from working hours to number of offs you get to the way we treat the staff.
But don't you think being toxic at that time kind of shaped you to who you are? Because you're more rigid, agile to
Definitely.
the environment, and people now crying work-life balance won't have that kind of exposure.
Thicker skin. You build
True,
thicker skin.
you build skin. You also, as Chef said, you pick up a lot of things like speed, multitasking because of it. And I think it also motivates you to do well so that you can get out of this hierarchy faster. You're like, yeah, if I work harder and if I work more, maybe I'll get promoted faster and I don't have to be bullied by these guys. So in that way, but I think to the current generation, that wouldn't make sense. That toxicity also makes you hardcore. It's
100%.
true. And that difference also is visible in terms of the newer generation
But
coming.
when you talk about bullying, what exactly, if you could give me some examples?
It was just like stuff like this. Like, they would come check your prep, and if it wasn't good, they would just like toss it in the dustbin.
doesn't
Like, hotels can afford to do it. I don't think in a standalone they would really do it.
do that.
Because hotels' cost is not really.
Because they're doing it at scale. So
In
And
consider-
revenue is mainly from the
mainly from
rooms.
rooms. So they would like, throw that, and like I've seen seniors like clean the kitchen with wine. They've like poured wine and they're like, chalo mop maro. It's just stupidity. But it's just, yeah.
If you rub them the wrong way, then like you'll never make it off the visa table.
So there's some beef which Kempton, they'll keep you at the same place.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That's why I said in hotels, it's easier for somebody to hold you down. Even you could be talented and you could have a lot of potential.
Irrespective of having an HR team. Like even if you can't go to an HR and complain.
The HR
per se.
also-
So honestly, in like back then, firstly, this mental health and all wasn't really
wasn't
there.
a huge thing back
And
then.
then,
Like not even huge, not even a
Yeah,
percent
you
of it.
couldn't
Nobody, you couldn't
really-
say I wasn't feeling really.
I'm not feeling good.
You can say I'm depressed today, I can't work in.
No, then like all of us are depressed. Come chop on you. And it was quite toxic. Like there are times when I've been held back with 102 temperature because the next day's prep was left. Or I remember once we got free on New Year's, and the restaurant that I was working for at that point, we got over before 12 o'clock. So it was one of the first times we were getting to celebrate New Year's.
Year's.
And our friends were outside. And just because they wanted to fuck with us and we were, trainees back then, they just said that start spring cleaning the whole walk-in and deep at 12 o'clock at night. Which wasn't really required, but they just wanted to take that joy away from you, that, you can be celebrating.
But what did they get out of it though? Like,
It happened to us, so we will do
we'll
it to
pay
you.
it back like
Yeah.
that.
Also, sometimes they don't like you or they think you are privileged.
So
If you're
kissing
coming
ass is a
from-
thing? So kissing ass is your way up? We could say that?
Not really.
Not really.
it can have
Chefs don't like it.
Yeah.
Because the hierarchy is so much, maybe the CDP enjoys it, or he has more power of making the roster.
Fair.
So you have to treat him well. The butcher has control over something. So the executives aren't really the ones bullying you. It's the staff
ones
that is in
who-
control of operation that tries to fuck with you quite a lot.
Yeah.
And you have to be like, you have to learn that even if it was not kitchen and I was in a corporate, this would be, this sound
Same.
of politics would be happening anyway.
Also, if you learn how to navigate around these things and deal with situations.
Being diplomatic during the
Yeah,
situation is something
yeah.
you learn.
It was difficult to get something out or learn recipes and skill set from people because the passion and education wasn't there. They used it as sort of a currency that you do things for me, and once I think you have done enough things for me, then I'll tell you this thing that I know.
Yeah.
So that gatekeeping of recipes used to be.
I think now that's not a huge trend, right? Because people
It
realize.
still is.
Yeah?
Unfortunately, yeah.
depending
there
upon, there are a lot of chefs that are doing it. The
Yeah.
new age chefs
but
are
I don't
still.
believe that.
Yeah, I don't think.
Why? Why don't
gatekeeping-
you think gatekeeping recipe is the
I
best
mean, the
way
whole
forward?
idea is to share, right? If you want the industry to grow and if you want people to develop, then you gotta like share secrets and.
Also,
Also,
think-
I think it at some point it comes to how comfortable you are, like knowing that no matter what you give them, you can still do it better than
Still
them.
do it better, yeah. Because you have the equipments, you have the resources.
Also, it comes down to a lot of it comes down to talent. Like you can give a recipe to somebody and doesn't mean he'll be able to execute it exactly the same way as you.
like if you and me make the same thing, there's going to be and follow the same recipe, it will come out very different. The
100%.
end product isn't going to be the same. Your seasoning is different. Your cooking style must be different. So I don't think gatekeeping recipes, and especially with the sort of information we have now, if you want to learn about a recipe, some auntie somewhere has made that recipe, even if it was a local regional recipe.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So now me as a North Indian can go and check that, okay, what is a proper
take it.
Tamil fish gravy like?
Correct.
And understand, even if she's speaking in a different
Different
language.
languages, some food can have.
Oh, the food looks the same. A cumin will look like a cumin irrespective in Tamil Nadu. And second, I think, like Chef said, it's a lot on how confident you are as a chef. How difficult can it be to figure out a recipe if you are well-traveled and you've tasted stuff?
So you could say that one would be insecure and they would be
No, there
gatekeeping
is-
at that time.
There was insecurity, right? ITC would always have these stories where the master chefs would always have labeled masala dabbas, like masala dabba 1, 2, 3. They'll tell you get the dabba number 3, but you have no idea what
What's in
masalas
it?
are in there. So
Damn.
you would never get to know the recipe. But back then, that was their currency.
Currency to like say, hey, I know I have all this knowledge because
Also-
internet wasn't there.
Also, the idea of like I think back then people were way more threatened by newer stuff, and especially if they were coming from like a culinary background or with education.
Intimidated at the end.
There was a major difference, I think, back when Chef also joined, and even till I joined in 2011, where there was a beef between culinary graduates and this thing because they thought they were privileged, and these guys thought that they weren't really
And these guys are the experience.
evolving with the sort of change that's happening in the industry. So that was there for a while. Now it's
Kind of moving on. One
Also-
cool thing I see in Europe was like, there's one day pasta bar, like all these guys kind of who runs pasta specialized restaurants kind of drop their recipes now. Of the entire process of them cooking it, it kind of works for them, right? Because people see how exactly they made it, what ingredients that goes through. It kind of like reverse psychology, and you try replicating at home, and it's not going to come out the same way.
It's never gonna
And you
come
want to
out
go and try that.
No, but it also gives you access to so much more food. Like we ended up doing the Sichuan chili burger and the pop-up day before. And that's because the chef from Peking House, he put up the whole recipe explaining what, and in a very technical way, why we are using this, what difference does it make. So if he hadn't really put it out, like you can always see it, but you would never know how to execute it and pay a good review to them. So I think now because there's so much globalization, your recipe doesn't really is being tried just in India. Some random foreigner is now trying the things that we were making in single thread. What are those called? Panierams.
Panierams.
I saw some chick making panierams.
Yeah.
And people are really interested in Indian food and vice versa.
100%.
So I don't think now is the best time to be gatekeeping recipes. And like, what is so original that you have come up with? That doesn't really
It's
exist.
a list
also-
of ingredients and a process, right? You can't just copy, say, I'm copying and keeping it for myself.
Markup your white side, a very good thing that every dish is a copy of a copy of a copy. Nothing
Inspired
is
from somewhere.
There's only few people who have really invented stuff.
So now you've done like a year and a half in parks. And that is when going back to Olive happens on the first offer. Or like, did you contact them or did they reach
No,
out to you?
so while I was in the park, I had bumped into Chef Manu at an event in the hotel, and generally was talking to him, and I think he's got a knack of understanding that I had reached that stage when I was like done, and he was generally asking me how things going, this, that, and all that. And I was like, cool. He's like, hey, why don't you come talk to me sometime? We'll chat. And I was like, cool. I didn't really pay much attention to that. Just kind of went about with work, And then my parents had taken me for dinner to Olive. And while leaving, he was sitting having a glass of wine. So generally, hi, how are you doing and all that. So I asked, then I was like, are you free right now? She's like, yeah. So then I just went and approached him and said, I'm looking at moving from the park and was just wondering if there was any opportunities in Olive. And so he was like, yeah, come see me. He gave a day and a time. Just come, we'll chat. And that's basically how it started. Then I walked in and he was like, surprise trial.
The surprise straight test was such
surprise straight test.
So what was the test about? What is it?
He gave me 3 ingredients. He gave me a Himalayan trout, a whole duck, and an eggplant. And he said, make me 3 dishes.
So he's like doing MasterChef before MasterChef.
I guess,
mystery box challenge.
Yeah.
He has a mystery box ready pretty
But
much.
before we like go to the Olive story, like we talk about Manipal and IHM, but there's a parallel school going on, especially in Bangalore, which is Chandraji's Culinary College, where Chef has come from. I think especially in Bangalore, it's taken out more chefs than most of the colleges. Because Chef Girish was at that point there in Olive. Chef Prashant, Kavan Chef used to be from the same thing. Chef Thomas,
Anirudh.
from the Kavan. So all of these have
And it
come.
kind of became a term, like,
Chef Guru.
Yeah.
Guru also.
Chef Guru, who's doing Pizza Bakery
Pizza
and
Bakery.
Paris Panini, he was there. And so many people came out. So
There's so many more who have moved on, like abroad and all that as well.
So a lot of reference of Chef Manu comes because he was like the chef's chef at that point. He was
So it's
the
pretty
one
much like a teacher as well, not just
He
teacher.
is.
And he was, I think, different in that approach that what we were discussing about, he wasn't threatening by hiring somebody who was qualified enough not to challenge. Usually you don't, and it's a running theme that you try to hire under your capabilities. Anybody who does not match up your capability. The good thing about him is, and what other people also say, is that a good boss makes more bosses. Right? That
He would actually say that a lot. Like, my goal is for you to take my job so I can do more things
100%.
that frees me up. So
That kind of gives people the freedom to kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
be more curious, to kind of be interested in what they're
and
doing.
he
become
was
a chef.
he also, I think, taught me at least that part of being approachable. Like, he was also very approachable. You could go and talk to him about anything.
Anytime.
Anything under the sun, anytime when he was there. You know, chef, you got a minute? And he'd be like, ha, bolo. And, you know, oh, I have this problem or anything. Maybe not related to work, in general life or anything like
He
that.
was just open to listen at
He
any
was
time.
always open to listen, and he gave good advice, and, you know, never really had bad advice from him in anything. He's always taught well.
But this is the golden era of Olive you're talking about. This is also the shift that we were discussing that was happening from hotels being a thing to standalone becoming
Standalones
more
finally
popular.
coming into the spotlight. Yeah.
And Olive was on the forefront of it, right?
Yes.
And the time that we are discussing, I think the range, the line that was there, that was cooking at that time in Olive, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was Chef Manu, and I think the
Chef Manu was more on the pass. But yeah.
and Chef Prashant, who's been behind Fatty Bao and a lot of these brands, he was the
Chef Prashant was when I joined, he was CDP
CDP. at that.
CDP at that
those
time.
days.
And you were doing pasta,
I was on appetizer.
appetizer.
And he had joined Olive as a DCDP.
I had joined as a DCDP, yes.
Yeah, but coming back to
Demi
the
chef.
test, that waitress, what exactly?
Yeah, so three ingredients. He's like, make me 3 dishes. He's like, the kitchen is open to you. Take whatever you want. And then he's like, left.
Do you remember what you ended up making?
Yeah.
So I think with the eggplant, I did some sort of a caponata dish. With the Himalayan trout, I did crusted fish, which
Like a
kind
fried
of
one.
Yeah, no pan-seared, but it kind of killed it.
Okay.
And the duck was the duck larron.
Dark ones, fair enough.
And by then you had dabbled in butchery and all, because then
A
butchery.
little bit. So that was later on. He explained that the reason why he did that was he also wanted to see skill of butchery, because he gave a whole fish.
Oh, he gave whole of everything.
He gave me a whole fish and a whole duck. So he wanted to see how I would do
From start to
butchery.
finish, right?
Yeah.
Damn.
So there was a little bit, and then also he went on to explain that the preparation for the fish, Himalayan trout being a very delicate fish in terms of flavor and texture and all, doing the pan searing and the crusting and all, kind of killed it. It didn't really.
Just make a simpler.
Yeah, he said a simpler pan seared, maybe
Just
with
basic
just
butter.
still mild sauce would have probably worked out better. But yeah, I mean, he felt confident and he hired me on board. And
So you feel like he took a leap of faith on you at that day, and that kind of
I mean, I had skill, but yeah, definitely it wasn't the best trial,
restaurant.
but it was not bad.
What is your this thing on trials? There's a lot of conversation happening about whether do you require food trials these days or not. Do you think they are important, or do you think we can?
So personally, in my career, I usually don't take trials unless they're coming for a very senior role. Then maybe I would like to just see how they work, because a lot of times people talk a lot that I can do this, I can do that, I've done this, and then when they actually join, they don't really back it up.
Correct.
So for a junior staff, say like a junior level, like a commie, DCDP, up to a point you can just talk to them and be like, okay, fine, we'll try you out. But when you're going for like, say a junior sous or a sous level, then I feel a little bit of a trade. I don't ask for like a major, maybe just one dish.
One dish.
Because I think that's enough to understand how the person works. You can just observe them, just their basic knife skills, their working, their cleanliness. Are they able to communicate with getting ingredients from around the kitchen? Just that's enough to, judge if a person is.
But do you kind of judge the individual skill or how they work with the team? Because there are different types of trials which
it's like
happen, right?
when you're going for a senior position, it's more
With the
about
team.
communicating
Getting the team.
and working together. So if they're able to sort of at least
But we give them a team during this trial if they're higher
I think the
position.
kitchen is open to them.
Always
right?
open.
Okay, so they can take help and tell people to do stuff.
Yeah, and even finding stuff. It's not like you give them everything. Here's a tray with all the ingredients. You sort of give them like, this is the kitchen.
Because some kitchens take that
Make
approach,
yourself at
right? Where
home.
they'll give you an area.
They
in a whole
ask for a
box.
list.
Yeah.
So in a couple of other trials that I've done in Delhi and all that, they ask you
That's
for an
good.
ingredient list,
Fair.
and then they basically give you like a station with all your ingredients.
And we get to do pretty much a master chef type.
Yeah. But I believe you just give them the kitchen and let them sort of figure it out, figure out where is what. You give them a brief introduction.
about it.
Vegetables are here, our dry stores here, meats are here. If you need any help, talk to these people. And then you sort of let
The
them
junior staff,
Junior staff, I don't think so.
required
It's more communication, and I think with the junior
it
staff,
becomes difficult because it's a completely new kitchen with
Yeah.
like a whole set of different issues with equipment and all going on. So it's very difficult to
job.
expect somebody to just come in and then try to do their best dish in a kitchen that they don't know. That's I think usually
also with the junior staff, there's not much. You're not looking for creativity. You're looking for
Application,
execution.
execution.
So I think it's more you can talk to them and understand. Are they willing to work? And are they interested in working and stuff like that. I think the senior positions are where you need to
Really
be a
be
little more
key,
careful because they are on more of a creative role.
Correct. And it directly affects the business.
Yes.
Of it.
But are people okay when you're because the mentality in India also is that if I'm a higher position, I should be
shouldn't have to give a trial.
trial that I have
My experience
CV
should
and
speak
this
for
thing.
itself.
Yeah.
So
I've
have you faced?
I have given a trial for an executive chef. So.
Wow.
But do you face that ever with the senior staff?
Yes, I have.
Where there's an ego issue that I don't
have
want.
to give a trial, but it's like it's a formality, and if you don't want to give, it's up to you.
That kind of
Does
judges
that
the
mean that
person.
you don't consider them then?
Ideally, yeah.
Ideally, right? Yeah.
And one interesting trend that we see at Recipe when we work with the clients is that people actually that want to hire the front of the house staff at least for a month and say, hey, you come with the business, work with the team, see how you feel with it, until they understand the dynamics. So both the employer and the employee knows, hey, this is the fit for me or not.
That is, I'd say, a slightly modern style of trials, where even in the kitchen, it's almost like a 1 week trial.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah, that
come,
common chef we were discussing with.
yeah,
he
you
said,
just sort of come and work.
do a trial shift.
Rather than coming and preparing a dish, you just kind of come work with the team, see if they get along.
Do you think that works? Is
If
that a
they
working
gel.
model? Because the only thing it's time consuming, training, you
I
can
think
be.
it's a better model.
It's a better
for
model.
both the people to understand.
Yeah. But I don't know how open people are to doing
Do that.
Because it's a risk, like somebody might come and work for a week
And
and
they
then
leave.
it might not work out. Then you'll be like, dude, I'm sorry, it's not working out. So he's lost a week. I mean,
Correct.
you haven't really lost much, but he's sort of lost that time. So I don't know how open people are.
But people
to
do
that.
compensate for that time, right? Like for that week.
Because it's not like you're getting paid or anything like that.
So, like around the time that you joined Olive, it was also like industry-wise that shift was happening, where, as we discussed earlier, hotels used to be the main thing, and then standalone started coming
Yeah.
and taken seriously. Olive was on the forefront of it. I think Indigo was the only other standalone restaurant at that time, apart
Correct.
from Olive, that was, and not in Bangalore. So, as somebody who was also a young chef and up and coming at that point, were you able to actually figure out that this change is happening, or were you guys just going with the flow?
A little bit. There's a little bit of awareness that this is happening. Because I said initially that option didn't exist. It was only hotels. So slowly with these restaurants popping up, and I think people realizing that you can make careers apart from just being in a 5-star brand. I think it's slowly that shift was happening.
And do you think it also promoted more passion-driven people to come in, the standalone shift? Because earlier,
Definitely.
you were going up the rank and becoming a manager rather than a chef. Like
Yeah.
you were, like as you grew up the ladder in hotels,
So
your
you cook less.
relation with food became way less.
Yeah, true.
So
But irrespective of that, something we have been noticing at Recipe recently is when college students, right? They always mentalities to join hotel groups from the start because security and going up. But people who actually want to go into restaurants are more curious, more passionate, and they want to experiment, right? Because instead of job security, they're willing to take that risk, which kind of changes the entire trajectory. And that's where standalone comes in, because it's a difference between working in MNC versus a startup, right? You get to do a lot of things and learn much things faster than just doing one set thing for a long period of time, which kind of shapes people up faster, right?
Yeah.
That's something we see. And it's 1 in 20, right? It's not all 20 want to go to restaurants because they're like, hey, I'm not going to get paid well. But surprisingly, restaurants pay much better than the hotel groups we know.
I have a controversial opinion on that.
Yes.
I think the reason that happens is because a lot of these colleges have tie-up with hotels because
Okay.
they are the ones really giving them the major
Placement,
right?
admissions, pretty much.
It's like a relation, right?
Give
The
and take.
hotels are getting trained or educated people, and I think there is a certain. I don't think brainwashing is the right term, but you are only shown hotels as an option when you are in college.
And cruise
Like,
liners probably.
and cruise liners. And this is the old mentality, right? This has been, I think, there since when you were in college, when I was in college. It was either if you want to earn money, you're going to cruise. If you want to grow up the ladder, then you go into hotels.
So cruise pays you well.
Yeah.
They do pay you well, yeah.
So people who were who had the necessity that they needed to earn money, apart from just working at a location, they usually went and did like a 2-3 year stint at cruise, made money, and then came back and joined the hotel. And coming back to the shift, like what do you guys in Olive or as chefs were doing differently, because you were competing with hotels now, and they have a very different infrastructure and sort of budgets. So what was standalones back then doing to be at par with these? Was it more technique based that they were?
Definitely. So I think with Olive, firstly, we had a great infrastructure in terms of kitchen wise. That was like probably the biggest
Massive
kitchen.
kitchen.
Yeah, I've never seen a kitchen so big.
Apart from hotels.
Apart from hotel, with like a walk-in refrigerator, walk-in freezer.
Like,
Now
Yeah,
Lupa's kitchen's.
Now Lupa is,
Yeah, I had a look at the kitchen. It's massive. It's pretty much a restaurant on its own.
like a city. But in those days, that was like a luxury working in a kitchen like that in a standalone. And I think one of the edges that we had is our pricing. Like hotels have a certain price range. They have to be pricing dishes.
$1,000
at
for a
this
biryani.
bar. Yeah. Whereas I think we were serving that same quality, same presentation, but at a much more approachable pricing. So I think that sort of gave us a good edge, and especially in the competition against.
Come to think of it, shouldn't it be the opposite? Shouldn't standalones be charging more because they don't have?
But hotels have all that luxury tax and all those
That's
sort
what I
of
was wondering.
things.
Why is it because of the taxation?
Probably, I would imagine. But in general, I think even nowadays, the hotels are generally priced a little higher. Even their food, their food is priced.
Yeah. That's also sort of very specialty. But in general,
They are higher priced.
But your bet on standalones, was it a conviction or an intuition?
It was, I think, more because of the freedom. Like after being in the hotel hierarchy and understanding that you are limited in terms of your creativity and how fast you can move up. And also a little bit, I guess, America. I don't know if you really call them standalone, but like the restaurants that I worked in there was a lot more freedom and you were appreciated for the kind of work you were doing and all. I think I sort of gauged that hotels is not the place for me.
Fair enough.
the hierarchy in Olive was not, was it different? Because Chef Manu was also internationally trained, so I think he was bringing that. But was the hierarchy different from the general hotel thing? Were people more approachable? Were you doing?
Yeah, definitely. As I said, he was one of the first chefs that I worked with where it was okay to go talk to him
What
and
about the
approach
other
him.
staff?
They were all fairly open.
So we were approachable.
Yeah, generally it was a lot easier to like sit and have
So
conversations.
lesser hierarchy also, I believe, right? There's not a lot of subdivisions. It's pretty cool.
But so at one point I was actually juggling between Olive, Toast and Monkey Bar Bangalore and Monkey Bar Bombay.
What?
Yeah.
And so
It
how do
was
you
hectic.
have work-life balance?
There was no work.
And like, since were you, like, how does, we were discussing, right? Like, you were checking. It's so difficult to be in a relationship or date someone.
Yeah, what's like dating life when you're managing 4 brands, like pretty much?
It's tough, man. You just get one day to hang out with your partner, basically your day off, and everything is catered around your day off.
But how, like, I've struggled with it. I don't know whether
It was a struggle. I mean, it was a struggle, but I think my
the
partner
partner understanding as well.
understood that this is.
But not everyone would be in that same page.
No,
Right?
I don't think so. No.
especially if they're not from the same industry, I think the issue
Yeah.
becomes that your routines are completely different.
Different.
They are off on weekends.
You're working.
You're
On a
working.
Tuesday, they are at.
But then, I mean, we would make that's when slowly down the line we started this Sunday evening.
Which we were
thing.
discussing. And
So-
kudos to that. Like,
Yeah.
there was,
We would finish like Sunday brunch service and things like that, and by like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, we would call it a day, and we would
Have
get
the rest
like
of the
the
evening
Sunday
off.
evening
Yeah.
off. So then that's pretty much how we did that balance. So I would spend time with her on Sunday evening, and then she would leave work a little early on my day off, which was during the week. So we would sort
There
of
has to be
adjust that way.
understanding and cooperation.
There was an effort from both sides, and you know,
That also kind of builds some lasting relationships, if I'm not wrong. Because if
Definitely,
you kind of
definitely.
understand each other.
Yeah. In my situation, it hasn't been. It depends on how long can they be okay with it.
Yeah, 100%.
If there is a change. Also, I think with our job, it's so high pressure that when you do want to have work-life balance, then you see the professional part succumbing to certain things and that becomes if you are really passionate or if it's a newer relationship, then you're like, oh, my job is getting affected, so fuck this.
Fuck this.
Yeah, that's it.
But again, like I feel like Chef had the liberty at that time to move things around. What about people, let's say in a more junior upcoming ones, like they probably have to forget about it, right? They're like, hey,
yeah, I mean, you sort of have to prioritize like what do you need like at the current moment. I think getting your career
up first is priority.
up first should be a priority rather than everything else. But I mean, I guess that depends from person to person
Risky
what their
conversation
priorities are. Yeah.
Because after going through it, I don't think, it's not really possible to be like doing really good and also having work-life balance. Like there are very, very, very less chefs that are killing it and are also like well set.
I think that's in general.
Yeah.
In any field.
If it's
Yeah, it's
a high
always
pressure, long work environment, then it's a little difficult.
They're usually loners.
Yeah.
But the coping mechanism, ideally, like I think like having +1 at that time of being in a relationship kind of helps you like, take your stress off work pretty much. Because if you're just going to come back to an empty room, sleep and call it a day and go back, your life becomes kind of monotone, don't you think?
I think it can be a bit of both. It can help stress relief, and at some point it can add stress. Because I've had colleagues that were married and had kids, and they were working the same hours, and then they would be like, "Shit, man, I will go back at home and the kid and school and the." So it can be it could be like a stress relief having somebody there at the end of the day, but I think it's like a double-edged
sword.
Either you have a very understanding partner or you date I think later after you've
done those things.
Yeah.
Of course, date in between. And with the current culture, so I don't think
It's
that difficult. But yeah, I think to have a serious relationship, it takes time because you are sort of figuring out how to navigate through this new routine and so much of pressure. So now, and I think the biggest issue that I've seen with other chefs as well is that you hardly get time for yourself.
Exactly.
So now the moment you're dating someone, the moment you get free,
that me time is gone.
Yeah, exactly. Me time.
and that's hardly what 2 hours at the end of the night, right?
Yeah.
So in that also, if you have to go and they're already like a lot of times, just
And they'll be waiting for you to call or talk at that time. It gets a little like, I can
you now
imagine.
get to like disconnect and be like, what do I do for myself? I have to
100%.
Also, I think a lot of it is you need to sometimes focus on yourself a little bit. Do something for yourself. That me time is essential.
the coupley couples sort of scene doesn't really work.
Doesn't work.
This is where you're just like, don't just need Jana and half.
Yeah. But which is why I've stressed a lot to people that even though this industry is hard and the timings are hard, try and find some hobby or
to do.
something that you can do, be it like a sport or music or whatever, that you can sort of disconnect and do that for a while.
I mean, the best part was off camera. You just told us that, like between those breaks, you did your swimming and your
He's one of the only chefs that I've seen at like such a senior level who genuinely every day goes to the gym and goes for a swim on his break. Usually people just want
because that's honestly, that's what kept me sane.
Yeah.
Doing that, like even though everybody is like, man, used to work, then used to go work out, then used to go
get
back
tired.
to work. But honestly, that when I didn't work out, I would get tired. When I used to work out and all, that kept me going. Also, I think it's a mental
thing.
Way to get rid of negative energy or frustration. That's why I always suggest like do a hobby or something which you can get your mind off or take out frustration. It's a good outlet.
But sometimes chefs do take turns into alcohol and other things in terms of coping mechanism.
I mean, alcohol, there's a lot of alcohol and drugs in this industry. Substance abuse is there, but that's not really helping you. It's just sort of covering up the problem. I think eventually.
Isn't that
just-
okay for initial periods of time? Because ideally you want to just get through it.
I would never suggest that as an option because
Like
it's,
dependency, not.
yeah.
The idea of why people get so much into like alcoholism or substance abuse is you are not getting time to actually live your life, right? At 1 o'clock you're getting free and you have 2 hours. You need some sort of a catalyst
Correct.
to justify yourself that I'm having fun.
Yeah.
And especially like suppose when I came to Bangalore, by the time I would get out because Bangalore shuts down early, all the other restaurants
It's all closed.
if
Yeah.
you're just going home and you don't, if you have a good friend circle and you can chill
Yeah.
with them, that's the best way to. I would say like after work that it's very important to go and de-stress from the shift that you've had.
What now that gets me the second question, which is very curious because your friend circle, is it more like from your work colleagues or is it
Yeah.
also because the work-life
Work
balance?
ones.
For
Yeah.
work, yeah.
Damn.
Mostly. Because the other ones don't really understand.
Or fit in. Nobody's free at 11:30.
Yeah.
So you're cool with chilling with colleagues during work and off work as well?
Yeah, it's a very different, I think.
Yeah.
And you talk about work, like there should be a line, bro, right?
That's the only problem that ends up happening is when you're in your de-stress, then you end up basically bitching about work or talking about work, which
And
we
that's
have
when
done. We
having
have done
a
it.
partner
Yeah.
becomes even more difficult because
Yeah.
they don't have any context. If
Correct.
suppose if 4 of you are hospitality and one person is non-hospitality.
Then you just talk about hospitality, yeah, bitching,
Yeah,
and
sort
they
of.
just don't know what's going on.
So look, it's better to be with someone from the hospitality industry, either it's a friend or a, let's say, a girlfriend.
So now it's like whatever works.
Whatever works.
And whoever understands. But yeah, I think it's or more skill-based industry.
More skill-based.
The corporate ones, they sort of have their own completely different type.
9 to 5
Yeah.
and
And they don't understand. Like it's very difficult. I remember I had to leave my date once because I'd forgotten potatoes. So the fact now I have to explain to somebody that like I have to go take out potatoes rather than spend time with you. They don't really understand how can that be more important to you right now.
correct.
So I think that's there's also that weirdness and that passion you have towards food, which is difficult to communicate to
Yeah.
like somebody who's not from the same sort of industry.
Very interesting.
And so then Toast happened, and Toast
Yeah.
was also an instant hit, I think.
Yeah, I think from day one.
And you were there for how many months?
There for about maybe 6 months post opening.
So what led to that jump? Or was it because it's been good 9.5, 10 years with Olive as a company?
Yeah. So that's basically I had reached a point where I wanted to explore trying something on my own, and had approached Chef, spoken to Chef, told him that this is I've been working now for like 9, 10 years with you. I think I want to break off and try something on my own, see if it works. Won't know till you try. And he was actually very supportive, and he said, I agree, it has been a long time, and I think you need to try your own stuff. And yeah, that's what the exit was, just clean exit. It was not like there was no animosity.
Did you already have Sly?
No, so I had actually, at that time I had somebody had approached me to start a restaurant, and we were working on opening up a restaurant together and all that. But unfortunately that didn't work out, it fell through. So I was just kind of sitting at home, and then one of the directors for Azure, which is the company that started Sly Granny, he was a classmate of mine from school.
Okay.
So I had just bumped into him randomly. He was like, I'm in Bangalore, let's catch up and, hang out, have a couple of drinks. And in conversation, he was just like, what are you up to nowadays? And I was just like, nothing, man. I'm just in between jobs, just, trying to figure stuff out. And he was like, oh, we're starting this brand called Sly Granny. And I think it's very up your alley, the kind of food that we want to do and the style and all that. So why don't you check it out, give us a call or whatever. Then they flew me down to Delhi, and we met with the team, and they explained the whole concept and things like that. And I said, why not? This sounds interesting. I wasn't doing anything. So I was like, might as well, rather than just sitting at home, at least do something. So
Do you feel like the push to Sly Granny was like you had most responsibilities at that time compared to your previous 10 different places?
So with Sly Granny, it was all like, they had basically given me complete freedom in terms of the food. The
menu
brand,
creation.
They had a brand sort of outline and stuff, but the kind of freedom that I had in terms of like menu creation, down to how you want the service to happen, the crockery,
Everything.
kitchen design.
So the property wasn't built when like
No, it wasn't built.
built.
So all of that was
Appearing.
applied. So it was good. It was a big step for me personally as an individual.
Yeah.
Growth wise.
Like getting out of the
Yeah,
shell.
complete shell, getting so much freedom. And
I mean, how did it feel, right? Starting as a dishwasher in the US and an executive chef of like one of the top brands.
it's a long journey.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah. But yeah, that definitely gave me a lot of confidence when that brand came out and it started doing well. That definitely
Found your footing, like,
gave a lot of footing as well as built a lot of confidence that I can do this without having another, like a chef or a mentor with you. It was because it's your call. Yours is the last call.
I think that's what takes a while to get used to. Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to ask.
You don't have to ask
Yes.
questions like, can I do this?
But doesn't
Can I
that
do
come with a unique set of challenges? Because now you'll have to train, you have to be that person for the people under you.
I don't think you take that jump till you think you're sort of reaching there.
Yeah?
Yeah, like I hadn't done pre-opening till toast, like even after toast. Single thread was the first pre-opening that I ended up doing. So even though I could have started Gorilla just after toast, I thought that, I'm still missing the
Leadership and all that.
just the experience of what it takes to really start from scratch. Like getting the kitchen ready, like Chef was saying, kitchen design, how do you do staffing, on what basis do you...
So more business elements to it rather than just cooking and
Yeah.
chef menu
Which is
creation.
also quite important in that way, which was going to be my next question, that you've been part of a lot of pre-openings, right?
Yeah.
And those are so different from just joining a kitchen.
So my first was single thread.
Single thread.
And you do learn like so much that I think everybody should have a pre-opening on their CV. I would suggest after they have gotten a bit of an experience.
Correct.
It helps you as a chef when you know the general stuff going around and then you learn. But chef, like you've been part of major brand openings, right? Monkey, Sly, this thing. What do you think that anybody who's part of a pre-opening thing should look out for, or what are the factors that are important that people usually miss out when doing like a opening of a new place?
Well, I mean, when you're part of like a pre-opening team, it's great. It's a great learning because you're basically involved in like from ground zero. Like, you see how the restaurant is coming up, how things are being done, how certain things like supply chains and stuff get established, and, the sampling and the trying. Of course, being in the same city, a lot of that stuff is already done from past. Like, you don't need to go look for new suppliers and things like that. But definitely that's your time to experiment in terms of product, also anything new out there, working with like vendors for crockery, getting involved, just maybe not getting involved, but just being observant and seeing stuff like that happening, How do you choose crockery for your restaurant?
Equipment.
Initially, equipment. Initially, it was like baffling. Like, they were like, crockery, and I'm like, huh? And they were like, yeah, you got to pick crockery. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what do you do? And then, there's just samples and samples of plates and bowls and this and that. And then you sort of have to work and envision what the menu is going to look like, what you
sort
want
of
it to look
dishes
like,
you're thinking.
how do you want the presentation of your restaurant to be like. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into like pre-opening, which I feel is definitely
Worth
an
experiencing.
Yeah, and it's a high stress. Sometimes it's more stressful than a regular restaurant operation because you've got like deadlines and
no set systems, right? I think that's
nothing.
the thing to
There's no
get.
set system. Everything has to be put into place.
In place, and you're part of building that standard.
SOPs, yeah. So you sort of basically building a brand new restaurant
From a team
scratch.
to everything.
Yeah, it could be, even though it could be an existing brand that you're maybe moving to a different location. So some SOPs would be there, but still you've got to cater to new staff. You've got to, adjust with the new staff, train the new staff, things like that, which you don't really get to do in a regular up and running restaurant. So it's definitely a great learning.
While touching upon equipments is something I've been very curious because in the past 2-3 months we've been coming across a lot of people started cloud kitchens and restaurants and they all started buying second-hand equipments pretty much, which is much used later. And what are your thoughts on that? Do restaurants, is it good to get second-hand equipments or just stick with new ones and all brand?
So for certain things, second-hand is fine, I think. Like, for example, like a tabletop or
Smaller
Doesn't matter.
equipments.
New or old.
Deep freezer, fryer.
Stainless steel is stainless steel. But when
Fryer-
it comes to like, I think refrigeration, I think that is where you should go with new. I think second hand is not the
Ovens
best
work
option.
well.
Ovens, things can be looked at, but I think the only compromise, I think when it comes to refrigeration, you should not.
No compromise
You should not.
there.
You should
No,
not.
and if you're going for second-hand equipment, then either you should really know the electrical part of it, or you take somebody who's like a professional who can see whether the basic stuff is working or not. And second, I think budget plays a major part.
Yeah.
If you have the budget, then newer things do help.
But can't
there's so
restaurants
many-
start with the second-hand stuff, and then as they scale, they can just
So many of them are now
replace it.
standing
Yeah.
with second-hand stuff, especially before COVID and post-COVID. So many restaurants opened and shut.
Yeah.
That a lot of time it was just recycling, and there's nothing wrong in that till you get it's. I think it becomes a problem when you buy something and you spend that money and you realize that this was just like a facade, so that
Yeah.
it could work at that time. So that happens a lot. So to not get scammed is it depends on how well researched you are.
But like certain things for like that table behind you,
you don't
brand new or second hand, I mean,
really-
not
Doesn't
much
really
difference,
matter.
Not much different. Things like that, a sink,
correct.
stuff like that. But I think what I was advised to and what I stick with is the refrigeration part, because that's one of the most important things in your kitchen.
And it gives
is
up
your
also the
refrigeration.
fastest, right? The maximum issues we have are with the
Yeah,
refrigerator,
is
with the gas tank.
don't compromise.
So now I'm curious, what is the cost of setting up a kitchen? Let's say in a good 60 cover restaurant or like an 80 cover restaurant.
You know, it all depends on what you want to have, the kind of equipment you want to have. There's like so many things available in the market in terms of machinery, which you can spend a bomb. You can spend like 50,000 for an oven, and it can go up to like 6 lakhs, 7 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs if you want to
Even.
say. So it all depends on really what you want to do and how
This thing.
you want to show. If you really want to show off.
Is the price range for the scale or like how well the product turns out?
Also, it's a lot of it is brand.
Brand.
For example, it's similar to it's like cars. Like, a Maruti car is a car, it'll run, and a Ferrari is a Ferrari, like there's a difference.
There's
So
a
they have the same things in like ovens and things. They are brands like Rational and Hobart, which are like the epitome of ovens. And there are no-name brands in India, local ones that could probably do the same work, maybe not as efficiently and all that, but they could get the job done. But you would definitely choose maybe a Rational because of the brand, the reliability, things like that. So it all depends on how you want to play around with it.
So how do you decide what the setting up cost is going to be for the restaurant? Like, is there a percentage breakdown or rule of thumb which the industry follows?
I'm not aware of all that, not too sure. There probably is, but we've not really paid attention to that.
So probably get the best equipment and just get started pretty much.
No, usually you get like a capex by the company that they can tell you that, okay, this is what our budget for the equipment is.
Yeah.
And then accordingly you decide that which ones we want to take first hand.
And the
which
call's
ones-
taken by an executive chef.
Chef. For the kitchen though, it's usually whoever's in charge as the chef. The store guy plays also, or the purchasing team, that they play quite a lot of important factor in that. And then I think it depends, like what you were saying, right? How much does one outlet cost?
Yeah.
It depends a lot on the outlet, the sort of product you are doing. But I was going to ask, like, what do you think, like a normal, if somebody's opening, suppose, what is a generic brand that we can think of, which is...
Are we looking, you can maybe clarify about cuisine, like Conti or like South
Not even
Indian?
cuisine, like, are we looking at how much does a Rameshwaram take to set up, or how much does a Burger Senor take
Burger
to set up?
Setics. Yeah, far again.
So that one, like if you're opening, suppose a burger brand or like a Burgerama, but how much equipment cost do you think if somebody wants to open a sandwich place?
Not too much. Like honestly, couple of lakhs, I think you can, for equipment, within like about 4. I think because like when I had done Holy Chick, I think within about 4 or 5, we had done the whole kitchen.
Yeah, the equipment's everything within 5 lakhs?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a cloud kitchen.
Yeah.
But like equipment wise, basic. You don't need, we didn't want to go high end and get like the best of the best and all that. So we got basic local, whatever you could fabricate and customize and stuff like that. And of course, then later on, you can always upgrade to like, the bigger brands and stuff. But as I said, like basic things like tables and all don't really change as long as you get a decent gauge of steel. It doesn't matter what brand is on the table; it's going to do the same job.
100%.
So.
But again, on that note, so many pre-openings and you have pioneered the part. Now I'm curious, how do you know that particular restaurant brand is working? What are the metrics? I mean, obviously sales, but recently, when I talk to people, they say, hey, first 6 months, always the rush is there. But we see what's going to happen post those 6 months, right?
Yeah. So usually what they say is like that first 4 to 6 months is like they call it like that honeymoon period. Where people are going to come because it's new and they're curious to know what. It's like post that 6 months, I think, is where like that plays an important role. Like how good is your product and.
So it's always a 6-month thumb rule, pretty much.
I would say it's about 4 to 6 months. Yeah.
Is what the standard is, but I don't think most restaurants survive. There was a trend after which, like earlier, every restaurant would at least try for a year to stay a while. And then I remember when House Delhi started popping up, then the term became 3 months. If a restaurant doesn't work in 3 months, it would completely shut down and a new restaurant would come up, which was quite vague.
But I don't think even 6 months is like enough.
Enough, right? Exactly. If you invested so much money and your return on investment takes some time.
At least a year, you are quite sure that you won't break even. You won't be getting your cost out in the first year. But things have changed quite a lot. There is a certain amount of saturation.
Correct.
And there are also way more restaurants opening up than they were before. Now every new place, any place that has crowd, there is a new restaurant popping up. So I think that also changes.
But on that note, right, the operation capital which will be much higher, which you need to see if the restaurant's going to survive or not, right? Because you want to play the long game and then you are going full op heavy. And normal standalone guy can't do that. If you're a chain or if you have a big backing, I feel like, for example, as Joe here mentioned, they had those backings, so they have that kind of runway probably to do that, right?
Probably, yeah, definitely. Working with a bigger company or higher investment helps. But I think ultimately
the pressure
to the product.
Comes down to product.
If your product is good and it can stand the test time, I think, it'll work.
And as we've seen the general trend with other speakers as well, I think the better way is to expand depending upon the demand rather than opening like a Magnus Open restaurant and then thinking how I'm going to get the demand.
That's a great point because we see that with Naru, which had started, starting from an 8-seater, piled up the demand and moved out to a 20-seater. And I kind of started seeing a lot of trends. Sapa, for example, and now we saw Papa's in Bombay, which kind of has a full chef-centric thing. Just want to understand, as chefs, what are your thoughts on now chef-centric experiences and limited seating?
That's what we've been working
I am totally for this. So I travel a lot to America and all just for holidays and all, and you notice these small restaurants which are 30, 40, maybe max 50 covers, and there's so many of them. You don't really go. I have yet to go abroad really and see restaurants like Big Brewski, that size, it's
that exists, right? Stuff like Big
18,000, 20,000, 25,000 square feet, 700 covers. I'm not saying there are places like that abroad, but generally most restaurants are on the smaller side.
Yeah.
Whereas in India now it's something, I don't know what the shift is. Everybody seems to be opening just bigger and bigger and bigger.
I think that also has died down, right? It was post-COVID, during the time when driven spending was a thing. We saw a lot of these breweries open because land is cheaper.
It doesn't stop. It's still going on.
Really?
Without naming names, just think of the newer restaurants that have come.
Everything that's opening,
and all of them are massive. They're 150 minimum or 100 cover. That's become a new standard
200, 300 covers.
I think Big Brewski.
Are you shooting yourself in the foot by doing that? Because
no, it depends on what sort of Big Brewski did it correctly. They were serving their service in food was based on masses rather than a niche.
Also, we are referencing Big Brewski because they were the first movers who actually came with.
Oh, they've been successful. Bob's has been successful, right?
Yes.
So I think it's difficult to run a very big restaurant if it's not centered around mass.
Got it.
Right. So to do specialty stuff in a larger restaurant becomes difficult because somebody might come in for once in a week to have that. But to have regular clientele that are visiting regularly and your restaurant is full is difficult. And especially with this, I mean, there's so many restaurants.
Operating costs are so high. Like, if you have a smaller place, your costs are less.
Easy to manage.
Easier to manage.
You know how many people are
easier
gonna
to
come.
fill up. Easier to fill
Maybe
up.
as an experience also, right?
You get a better experience. It's more
Intimate, close.
Yeah.
When you went to Naru, the fact that Chef Kavan was actually having a conversation with you while serving, and
you don't get that. You don't get that in like a bigger place. So.
On that note, like moving from Sly Granny and how exactly we established all that, how did your journey look like that after? Like, what was your call to say, hey, I've reached executive chef? What was your next big thing after Sly Granny? Because that's probably the highest thing at that time you would have thought about, right?
Yeah, I mean, the next thing in Sly Granny was the opportunity to go to London and open a restaurant called Party Hill.
Wow.
That was also a big step because I was going international. And it was actually a very exciting time because it was showcasing Indian food in a place like London, which is like full of Indians.
Yeah, and there's a chicken tikka masala
yeah.
as the national dish.
So it was kind of cool. We did a lot of research on Indian cuisine generally. We did a lot of food tours, traveled around the country, like places like Bombay, Delhi, Lucknow, Jaipur.
So that's your R&D trip, pretty much. You're mentioning.
We did like a sort of R&D trip for about a year.
London have restrictions in terms of having like tandoor or things like that? Because I remember in Paris while I was there were restrictions by the government for not to build tandoor in certain restaurants. It was not.
No, so they don't. I mean, I didn't come across any restrictions, but they are very, very particular on safety.
Safety. What safety? Food safety?
In general, safety. So if you have like a grill, there needs to be so much space on both sides where you can walk around and.
So they have those standards.
Yeah, just their safety checks and all are like through the roof. You have to, as a head chef, you have to take a certification. So depending on what level you are in the kitchen, there's 3 levels, I think 1, 2, and 3. For I think senior to head chef, they have to take a level 3 certification.
Wow.
And I think you get only 2 or 3 tries to pass it. But it's hectic. So I took it and passed it, but it goes into like biology and things like that. Viruses and stuff that you don't really pay attention to in India.
So it's like a proper exam.
It's a proper exam that you have to study. It's an online exam.
Online exam, okay.
But you can't do it.
It's not an MCQ. Is it an MCQ or is it more like an Q&A based and how?
It's Q&A based and
A little bit of MCQs both.
Yeah. But it's quite tough. Like I was quite surprised, like, all the different kinds of bacteria and what fuels their growth and how do you prevent that from happening.
Cross-contamination.
Yeah.
Now they go a lot into
day-old rice is the biggest. No, in London.
Yeah?
No, you do not use day-old rice.
You should not be using because that has the most bacterial growth.
And this is specific to London.
No.
In India also.
This concept of the fact where we cook rice and then we keep it for the next day is quite
next
dangerous.
2 days is.
But we do see like grandmas and old people like soak it in water and keep it in, and then they do the next day. Does that change?
I think that makes a difference, soaking it in water.
So in London we were not using day-old rice for anything.
No, it's thrown.
Yeah.
Or the other thing is that it has to be really fresh. Like the moment it cools down, you put it in.
Correct.
If it's been sitting outside and then you put it back in the fridge, apparently that is quite.
I mean, France had this rule that you can't sell a day-old bread. It's illegal to do it. Like you got to bake fresh every morning.
But that's because of their love for bread rather than like health issues, right? Yeah, just like
But yeah, the kind of food and safety regulations there were quite crazy. It's quite interesting to learn all that.
Do you think having that in India would make a difference?
Oh, dude, it would kill India completely.
Yeah.
Because
how many restaurants would shut down?
your street vendors all at Pani Puri and all gone.
So you think that's a conscious reason why the government hasn't implicated very strong practices, because then they'll have to turn an eye to other practices?
I think the government turns an eye when a mishap happens. Like nobody used to come and check fire safety rules till the Kamla mill. Sadly, like we had to lose
people for that.
For them to realize. And it was also, it's so weird that how were 6 restaurants operating without a fire license? And now why is your knee-jerk reaction that there should not be smoking areas in any restaurant all over the country? Right?
Yeah,
that's when they stopped.
That's the change. Yeah. That's why there's the internal smoking.
Internal smoking, yeah. So that was because of the Kamla. But I mean, those restaurants were there for 2-3 years. How come you never knew that they were not? So there is a major issue with the general government bodies as well. But I mean, I think it's a slower change.
Slower
We're also
change.
coming, like this is becoming restaurant industry, standalones have
They
become.
definitely make it harder
They'll make it harder.
to open up a restaurant in India.
You think it's getting harder
Yeah.
by the day?
Yeah.
With the
They're not-
licenses?
They're not helping.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like a task. You have to know the right person
Yeah.
and have contacts
And bribe.
There's a lot of bribes involved.
A lot.
At what stages? Is it like while opening or while incorporating? At what stages?
All stages.
Really?
If you're opening, especially before you're opening, then
Just to get any basic license.
Anything you'll have to wear. You can't just go through the system normally. Impossible.
Very difficult.
very difficult. I think it's
file
almost
gets lost.
So now do these cloud
Especially
kitchens
if
and all
you
these
have
guys manage?
alcohol.
So a lot of the
if you have
cloud kitchens
alcohol
were
in-
running without licenses.
And there should be some sort of regulation, right? Because
So
people cooking out of home without
That's what
regulation.
happened initially with post-COVID. Like people just these cloud kitchens just
Home
sprung up.
chefs.
Yeah, there was no real licensing that they were doing.
Isn't that bad? Isn't that where food poisoning and all that
Yeah,
starts and your trust on restaurant completely gets
But
pulled
isn't,
back?
like if we are seeing those videos of, actual restaurants running with those kitchens, then I mean, if you're okay with that, then somebody selling food from their home, how bad it's going to be than a commercial kitchen, I feel.
Yeah, but also there was no enforcement in terms of
There
regulations.
still isn't. I
right?
don't think there's.
See, like, I mean,
slowly coming.
if you guys have to go through a lot of licenses, pay these bribes to actually make a functioning restaurant as a professional chef, why is it easier for a home chef or the person in a cloud kitchen to just immediately get listed on Zomato and start serving it? Like,
It's a new.
So initially, but now I believe
They're bringing in laws now
you,
to.
you have to get a trade license.
Yeah,
and things
that
like
has to
that
happen.
Our
start.
Chef Varun was also talking about that. I think that rule has changed. It was also very new, right?
Yeah.
Nobody was expecting so many
cloud kitchens just pop up.
pop up and people selling.
But I
food
think
from
as fast as they popped up,
They've closed.
closing as well.
closed as well,
because-
and the government couldn't do much was because then they would like either give us a bailout
Correct.
or let us at least make some income. I can't go out. I'm not earning from my company.
jobs,
Correct.
Then how do I earn? So also at that time to bring in regulations would have.
I mean,
been
cloud kitchens lifespans maximum pretty much 6 months from what we have seen. And like, if they have exceed the lifespan, what they do, they go back to like a standalone thing. They transition from a cloud kitchen because I always ask myself, why are they transitioning? Because maybe it didn't work out. For them, getting those margins didn't work out, so they probably moved out to think. Because even like one of the podcasts I'd seen, like a hospitality podcast, I think it was Nikhil Kamat's. Like there was an argument between Zorawa Kalra and Riaz
Riaz
about how cloud kitchens are profitable and not profitable. Riaz was saying, hey, it's not profitable, margins are almost the same and not making enough. But while Zorawa was saying, hey, margins are there if you do it from the central kitchen and all that stuff. So I'm just trying to understand how
I
does
think
it
it's
work?
there, but I think there needs to be support from like the government in
Yeah.
terms of regulations and
Subsidies.
as well as these carriers, these delivery carriers. They really squeeze money out of you in terms of like
the
commissions.
aggregators, right?
The aggregators,
Swiggy and
yeah,
Zomato.
like Swiggy and Zomato and all that.
But solutions like Thrive, which is coming up, which kind of acts as a substitute to these platforms, but still
We've tried Thrive and all, but still their reach isn't as
the discovery
like
is not that
Swiggy.
great. Correct.
But and like Swiggy and all are taking
ONDC also came in
30%,
recently, right?
ONDC is still on the work in progress. I mean, people are still
30% of
building on it.
your cut. Swiggy takes what like
30%.
30%,
30%.
and like we were discussing, right? The
Which is
margins are
ridiculous.
so
Like,
less.
how are you going to make money? Like if you
No, and for putting, but that's a long way. That's why there have been these fights going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people are finding alternatives.
Alternatives,
like
having their own delivery lines,
air
giving
menus
loyalty
and
points.
dot pay and all of
Yeah,
these.
but that infrastructure, they don't come with the same kind of infrastructure as like a Swiggy does. Swiggy does bring you your delivery partners and all where you
No, so
don't really struggle.
dot pay is doing that.
They're not as strong
At scale,
as-
right? At scale, you need that scale, that radius to actually cater.
Yeah. And also, but I feel Cloud Kitchen is a good way of experimenting a product.
It's experimenting, not a pure business. It's experiment.
It can be a supporting business, but I don't know if I can say that you can completely depend on a Cloud Kitchen for survival.
Unless and until you're like a Domino's.
Yeah, you have to
Or
build a
like
brand
either
for
well
people to
backed
know.
up and like your
I feel a
budgets
Cloud
are-
Kitchen is a good way to test the product in the market, see
Correct.
if it works, if it makes sense to open an outlet. Maybe that Cloud Kitchen can still remain, but I think then an outlet,
because it depends on the
some
product.
face is required.
Some ways required.
When was the last time you had like a fresh roll, right? All the cloud kitchens. So that
Yeah.
depends on whether you are a brand already and you're opening a cloud kitchen. I think when an individual opens, it's difficult to sustain.
But a
because
brand
the-
doing it is easier.
A brand doing it, if they have the backing and the budget for it, I don't think cloud kitchens as a concept don't work.
I mean,
It
Cloud
depends on-
Kitchen started because that during COVID, people couldn't
COVID
do it, so known
necessity.
brands can still serve their clients.
Yeah,
right?
and that also gave the known brands way more confidence. That's why Zorawar Kalra got into
Yeah.
right. Nashville Fried Chicken, Louis Burger.
That's a beautiful thing, right? Louis Burger, higher price point. He realized that the middle class is actually not buying it. Then he had repurposed it into a Nashville Fried Chicken with the same cloud kitchen.
Same everything, and they just and it's good. Like between Louis Burger and Nashville Fried Chicken, Nashville is way better.
I personally prefer Nashville at that point because the price point. I mean, Indians are usually value for money, right? Like,
Louis was not the best product, and it's my personal thing. But I didn't really like their burgers that much.
Their buns weren't bad. Their buns weren't bad. I feel like they kind of nailed their potato buns.
I'm a big fan of Burger Rama.
Burger Rama, we both are like.
I was telling Tusha last time, the problem with Burger Rama is I need 2 burgers to fill me up.
Yeah.
You can't do it with 1 burger.
But that's like an ideal. So I think that at some point that like exposure to
Plays a role.
what a burger actually is where it comes into
That's
it.
true.
That's like, ideally they always say a burger should be something you can pick up with one hand and eat with one hand.
Which burger? Which
you don't
what you
need
like
to-
about the
Yeah,
fact that
true.
even the double cheese you can just eat with one hand, which is
And the smash kind of helps it as well.
yeah, smash definitely helps in operational way as well and overall texture. as
Yeah.
well. It's way faster to pick up a smash burger than a thick patty that you'll sear
100%
and
that's
cook
true.
it in the oven.
Cooking time also is probably faster as well.
Faster. Within like a couple of minutes, 4.
And it doesn't really do much. Like people
Like
think
our-
these smash burgers must be drier.
You guys were serving.
We were
serving
serving, I think, 4 minutes, 5 minutes at the most.
Not
for
bad at
a
all. That's a good
sandwich.
service time.
I think COVID was the time when Holy Chick as a concept came into the picture. This is after you were back from London.
Yeah.
And because of COVID again.
Yeah.
So, at what point do you think Holy Chick started in the lockdown? Was it always a thought in your head, or was it out of lockdown that it was born?
He was actually just hanging out one day, and me and a friend, we were looking at, outside Empire, you have the rotisserie
chicken.
Yeah.
with the chicken. And we were just sitting and we were looking at that, and we were just like, over the years, the quality of that chicken has gone
Come
down.
down.
And we were like, it's really nice. So what if we were to do something similar to that? And which is basically where the idea of Holy Chick was born. And then, we went into a little more details of the different flavors. And then, of course, being chefs, we had to do that whole 24-hour brine and the 24-hour dry aged. So it's like a 3-day process to make chicken as opposed to what Empire does, which is like, 10
Chicken
minutes.
and-
Just masala dalo and cook it. So we ended up putting a little spin on it and sort of created that brand. And we named it Holy Chick because we just wanted to do all things chicken. Because one of the reasons for doing this brand was that it could be taken possibly all India. So no restrictions with meat in sense it's not beef or
Fair.
pork.
That
Like
makes sense.
chicken, I think, is a meat that pretty much all over
Everyone's
the country
comfortable with, right?
people are comfortable with, and I don't think people are going to stop eating.
I mean, I haven't even
chicken.
heard allergies regarding
Yeah, I
the
don't think
chicken.
people are
I've
gonna
never
stop
heard anybody
eating.
say I have a chicken
Chicken
allergy.
allergy.
Actually, yeah.
Egg, you hear a little bit.
Egg I've heard, but chicken
no
no.
one.
Then
So, we created this brand, all chicken, and then we took a call saying that we're not going to do anything else.
Fair.
So there's no vegetarian also, really.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
fact, we got a little bit of heat from that, saying that, what about vegetarians? And we're
But I
like,
mean, it's called Holy
"Well,
Chick,
This
man."
is the brand we've created. It's not really, if you want, there's salads that are vegetarian.
Yeah.
But like, what are you supposed to do with instead of chicken? Like rotisserie,
Mushrooms,
there isn't really anything you
jackfruit, I
can.
don't
So, yeah.
Ew.
So basically founded this and then got it up and running. It did really well. Unfortunately, the location wasn't really suiting to the clientele. It was a bit far off from our main target group.
this was in Yashwantpur.
Yeah, it was in Yashwantpur, and most of our customers were central Bangalore. So it was a long delivery time and high delivery prices and all that. So I ended up taking a call. We'll put it on hold. So we put the brand on hold, and
Now it's making a comeback.
yeah, now I want to bring it
Yeah.
back. Now we have some time, so figured now maybe try and do things right. Get a nice location that's central, that makes sense, and of course learn from the past. Learn from
yes.
mistakes. Always, try not to repeat the same stuff and all that. And make it going because it seemed to be doing well, and a lot of people have been quite heartbroken when we shut down, and we're still getting messages on our Instagram asking, are we going to deliver? Can we deliver? When are we opening again? And all. So I think make a comeback.
Soon.
Yeah, and which I think sort of started already.
Yeah, with the
Right.
pop-up, we sort
Pop-up,
of
yeah. But is that what is the next step now? Like, what does future hold for you? We know that you just did a consulting with Just Loaf,
yeah.
and Holy Chick is slowly making a comeback.
So the consulting was something I just wanted to try out. Basically, operations was getting very monotonous. Like it's been 20 years, 23 years of the same sort of routine lifestyle. So just wanted to try something different. So consulting, you're still in the food space. You're just not doing the same hours and stuff like that. So wanted to give it a try. It's different. It's nice. I don't know how long I'm going to be doing that.
Yeah.
But that definitely frees me up to do things like getting back with Holy Chick and get that going and all. So yeah, that's
It also keeps you in touch with cooking, right? And like
you don't lose
understanding.
out. You're not just sitting at home wasting.
Yeah.
But yeah, now basically goal is to focus, get Holy Chick up and running, get a kitchen space.
Yes.
And
After the sandwich takeover, really can't wait for the Holy Chick to make a comeback. Really excited for it. Thanks for making it to the podcast show. But there's something we usually do with all the speakers we have on the podcast. We host a quick rapid fire. Definitely not like the Karan Johar's one because we don't have the hampers.
No hampers.
But this is more hospitality focused. But yes, we'll ask some quick questions and just get idea of your personality from there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Done. If you had to do like one food for the rest of your life commercially, what would you be doing?
Cheeseburger.
Cheeseburger. Just plain and simple
straight up
cheeseburger.
Classic cheeseburger. From the menu, like but at the end.
Same. Yeah. I can completely relate to that.
If there's one brand or a chef you think needs a shout out or you look up to, which one would it be?
Was it like a brand that you feel is underrated or hasn't really reached the potential that it deserves?
I'd say maybe Just Loaf. I mean, this is their sixth brand, and I don't think they're getting the credit they do. They're doing a good job, and the food is really nice.
The croissants look great. I mean, I like croissants.
Go and try Just Loaf.
Definitely
Yes.
worth the check. Just Loaf.
Definitely.
I'm going tomorrow.
Yeah.
I talked about Chef, And apart from that, the next one was if you were not a chef. We know that you were a national swimmer and you've also done UFC fights.
They've heard your fighter name, the Great White.
Chef's fighting name is the Great White. And so like if it wasn't kitchens and if you completely skipped that train, what would you be doing?
I think it was something around sports. Either like coaching or rehab sort of training, or if not that, or music, something with music. Always been big into music. Maybe not in a band, but just in the whole music headspace.
Okay.
Like always been very curious about how that life would be. Because big influence of music all growing up from my parents. So, just a big fan of music in general.
I actually love that because pretty much what you've done since the start, everything is skill based, right? Even what you do rather is also skill based, which is pretty cool, right? Like honing a skill. That's lovely.
Like it's crazy because my mom is the one who introduced me to bands like Pink Floyd and The Doors, and my dad was a big Zeppelin fan.
Wow.
There's culture around
bands like CCR and then jazz, like Johnny Coltrane and stuff like that. A lot of influence from my parents in terms of musically. Got to thank them. They were a big part of music. You don't get that too often.
Yeah,
your parents are like showing you such stuff when you're a kid. That too.
Ages where they play budgeons, we're having like Pink Floyd.
So very cool.
So cool. And did the tattoos come first or did the chef job come first?
Funny enough, the tattoos came later. Like, after being in America, I never got even one tattoo while I was there. My first tattoo, I think, was 2010 or 9.
Which is way after like being in the industry for quite a while.
It's after even coming
I thought it was the American influence.
It was funny because in America, I sit back and laugh saying that I was there for 5 years and never came back with even one tattoo. My first tattoo was in Bangalore.
So now how many tattoos do you have?
Now I'm currently sitting at, I think, about 20.
What do you think, because we were discussing personal life and dating, what do you think is the most common misconception people have about dating a chef?
Everybody comes up to me and they're like, oh, your girlfriend must be so lucky, she must be eating so good and all.
They don't
But in
get it.
reality, no, nothing.
Nothing
Maybe
like
it's eggs for breakfast.
No Jackson
But
John.
yeah,
Jackson
you know,
at home.
really, it was like after cooking all day in a kitchen, like to go home and then slave again on a stove.
I think it's
Not
nicer
gonna
when they cook for you. You're like somebody.
Yeah,
who's
someone's
cooking.
actually cooking for me.
But that's also more pressure for them because they're like, oh God, you're a chef. Like people
that's
do that all the time. Oh my God, you're a big shot chef now. I have to cook for you. My food's not going to be at par. And what they don't realize is that we're not looking for fancy. We just want like simple food, like tasty.
But does that
tasty
happen in
food.
the opposite situation? Do you sometimes like feel like I'm going to be judged just because I'm a chef if I'm making food for like a certain someone?
Yeah, people, I mean, yeah, you're constantly under critique, I think,
Under
both
the-
ways.
Yeah, I think I sometimes get like a little nervous
Yeah.
if I have to suddenly make food for someone I've just
Friends.
And if it's not good, then they're like, they look at you like, oh, I thought you're a chef, bro. What is this?
So
You know?
I think there is that angle.
But chef's kiss has become ironic right now, like
Yeah.
pretty much.
But any which ways, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and the fact that we
great to
could
be-
actually do this
this
is
finally.
amazing. And thank you to these guys.
Yeah,
and
thank you for
possibly-
making it here. Really appreciate
Pleasure,
it.
pleasure, absolutely.
And it's been such a long conversation. Can't wait to see
See.
how it comes out.
Yeah.
Love it.